Lords and ladies of the Duchy, welcome to episode 4 of Duke's D&D Debauchery, where we continue to follow the story of our heroes on the world of Renkaat in the Conduit. Where we last left our heroes, they had just fought off some animated armor in the ballroom, found their way into a library in the second story of the Summer Palace, and eventually found their way behind a painting at the far end wall and down a set of steps that should have led to the very front of the ballroom that they had just come from, but instead it leads them below where they think they should be. Now, what they had seen is that this room that they had entered, that it's open, no columns or anything. There is a sigil of what appears to be a sword cutting through a circle almost in the center of this room, and it's inlaid into the stone. And this is that same lightly blue marble that makes up the rest of the palace. And there appears to be inside the sigil flowing gold, not like molten gold, but actual, as if gold itself was liquid and flowing. As the party walks forward to go and inspect this sigil, a ghost rises, an ethereal figure rises from the sigil and asks the party, "Whose then are yous?" And we are introduced to Hetham Enikia, first king of the West. So our party responds that they have been sent by Dawn to recover this ring, and the king recognizes the name Dawn and is very fond. The party gets the sense that there's a very fond connection between the king and Dawn. So the king's pretty okay for the most part with the idea of them taking the ring, but there's a couple of things that happened before then. He tells them a tale of a ring, and the tale of how he got the ring. And so I will recount for you exactly what he said to them. So there we was, just off the coast of Sealand, 8 of us, rulers all, gathered by Hlifar for the purposes of peace. Vel from the Trinity of Tritons, Stormhowler, first of the Giants, Rog, Primarch of Snubland, Lorethan, Archbishop of Athenia, Clegger, Mayor of Botbury, Mondiero, Chieftain of the Shoe Orc, Keelis, Divine Empress of the Merfolk, and myself. Not never been neath the depths like that, nor since, be of a mind you, but there we was. We each had our minders with us, couldn't tell you the names of theirs, but my wife was with me. Sight had gone from her by then. Thought might be in the best interest to not bring no one who could seize their faces and the like. No magics to speak of neithers. Hlifar opened a chest, ring for each of us, ring for each school of magic. They didn't tell us what the others got, just our own. Evocation came to me, for healing the wounds of a newfound kingdom, they said. Right bit of good it did too, once we mades it back. Told all of us to keep 'em safe and the like, then sent us out while keeping them minders behind. We didn't exchange no words, us rulers, while we waited. Just the cold silence of the depths about us. Wasn't but a few minutes, and then them minders came out, a box in each their hands, and we all lefts. Asked the wife what's in them's box we got. Only thing we could get from hers is she'd give it to me when the kingdom was in dire need. Said she'd kill me if I tries taking it for then, and the like. She was best to be believed in that fact. Sight might have been gone from her, but that don't mean she couldn't deal with the likes of me without losing a hair from her braid. Fiercest woman I'd ever met, and never had the mind to find one worse off. Never told them on the councils we got them's box. Didn't want no one's getting bloodthirsty. Probably them's the right choice, seeing how they locked me away here once the power sickness got to their heads and the like. Hid the ring from 'em too. Had one of Flifar's boys builds me this safe. Lumot was their name, I thinks. Lumot Pole. Was barely older than a dirling, fresh from the brood and the like, but his work was good. Council had the entire wing of seekers down here trying to find it. Didn't work none. Only opens by word of the true king of the West. So this conversation continues on with the party as some other things are revealed that talks about the king's relation to the charter, why he is still here. The charter that created the kingdom of Hetham and Enikia is bound by a lawful neutral deity. Literally, Don went to the pantheon of gods, grabbed a lawful good deity, bound them into a charter establishing the kingdom, and with it bound the rules of the kingdom. And one of the rules of the charter is that there must always be a king. And so, because of some other things that are going on in regards to the council not electing a true king, Hetham and Enikia lives on, in a sense, as a ghost. So, the other thing that Hetham talks about is the betrayal of the council. Basically, they disagreed about what it was that the government was supposed to do. Hetham was very much of the mindset that the government was there for the people and to protect the people from outside forces, and was supposed to be there to help. The council, after 25 years or so, is starting to get to the point where they're wanting to abuse the power that they have come into, and Hetham stands in their way of doing that. So they eventually depose him. Not necessarily super violently, but they poison him and get rid of the thing that was in their way. And all of them that are on the council are so madly convinced that they're the only ones that should have access to the power of the king, that for the next 650 years, the council never votes for anyone but themselves, and there's never another true king elected in the kingdom of Enikia. And Hetham is basically at the point where he's like, look, man, I've been dead for 650 years. I've been stuck in this single place for 650 years. The only thing that I can affect is the safe where the ring is held and that book that was sitting up in the library that showed you how to get behind the picture, basically, to come to me. Those are the only things that I can affect, basically, as the king. So he's very ready to be done. And he takes this opportunity, knowing that these people have come from Don, who he's very familiar with, knowing that basically these are the only people that he's seen in 650 years. This is his best chance to finally be able for his soul to move on. And he's willing to give these individuals a chance. But they have to be bound to him. And so basically the stipulations that he sets is that I will give you the ring, but you will not give the ring to anyone but the true king. And the true king must come and see me once they're elected. That's it. Those are your two stipulations. Don't give the ring to anyone but the true king, and the true king has to come see me. It's pretty simple, but he tells them that if you lose the ring, and it goes to someone who isn't the true king, I'll know. And it'll come back here, and then you and I can have a conversation. And it's not going to be as easy as this one. So there's obviously a stress level that is trying to be implemented on the party here of, we're going to give you something that's very important. You have to protect it, but there's something that needs to be done with it. There's a reason that it was hidden here away from people. There's a reason why Don, who knows the king, has found all of you to come and get it. That he's willing to tell you what his true name is so that you can name drop him to the king so that the king will basically be on your side. There's a lot kind of riding on this group of individuals, and the fate of an entire kingdom, although I don't know if it's necessarily pressed into the party's heads, but the fate of an entire kingdom is going to rest in your hands. That's how important this is. So I'm going to, in order to ensure that this is successful, I'm going to bind you to me in the king's covenant. The party agrees, and they all step onto what was a sigil of a sword in a circle is now a sigil of what appears to be a raven in flight. And they all feel the divine energy kind of burst forth from the sigil beneath them and kind of feel it wrapping around them. And there's a slight tension that is placed on their skin before it is released. And the king opens up literally a wall. It was a perfectly smooth wall, and the stone disappears, and then there's a white pedestal that is sitting there that has water flowing from it, and then there's a simple silver glint that is coming from the top. And Gorstag, because he also has his own charter from Hlifar to go up and grab... His charter is to go and give the ring to its rightful owner. What Dawn told them to go out and do is give the ring to the rightful owner. The king has told them who the rightful owner is. It's the next true king. So, but Gorstag is not necessarily... He's operating for money because that's most of what Gorstag has grown up doing, but he's still... There's that more base instinct that much more... That drive that more hits home for him isn't the fact that Dawn has told him to do this. It's that Hlifar, the creator of the changelings, has told him go out and do this. And so he is the first one who basically gets a break on everyone and goes over and gets the ring. This particular action drives Dox insane because she does not trust this man already. And now he's going and getting this exceptionally important relic first before anyone else can do anything. Does not sit well with her. They end up... So Gorstag gets the ring. They say goodbye to the king. They walk back up the staircase, back down through the ballroom. The armor that they had dissipated, kind of disenchanted, has now found their way back on top of their pedestals. They go back through into the courtyard, and the courtyard has gone away from this terrible hedge maze that they had to fight their way through, and is instead changed into like an English garden type of situation where the hedges are all nicely trimmed and there's like individual plants. The pond is still sitting there in the middle with like some benches around it and things of that nature, and the lily is at this point not sitting in the center of the pond, but is instead the branches, not necessarily branches, but the vines and the actual main stem of the lily has grown up out of the water and presents itself in a female kind of water dancer type form. And they make it out of the palace, but there's a confrontation that happens where basically these people don't trust each other. And so in order for them to gain trust with each other, they take turns handling the ring. So they don't, none of the players choose to wear the ring, at least not yet, but they hand it off to one another each day, and it was a continual cycle that we had to keep track of in order to not have one... If the ring goes missing, or if somebody basically goes down, like they know who has the ring. If someone is acting extra shady when they have the ring, then obviously they know, okay, I can't actually trust this person. So that was kind of their way of dealing with that conflict. As they're traveling back, because again, it took them 3 weeks to get out all the way to the Summer Palace, and it's going to take them approximately 3 weeks to get all the way back. Their horses were just outside of the Summer Palace. They hadn't gone anywhere. It had only been a day, really, because they'd taken one long rest, so it was fine. They start their travel, and they make their way down the road and everything, and they re-arrive at the town of Fork. Now, this was one of the places where I, as a DM, took control of the story, in particular, as that I put them back in that same tavern that they had come to, where the barkeep that they had met was exceptionally rude to them. And instead of being this rude barkeep. It is instead a younger, late teenage female. And she basically explains to them, yeah, this used to be my dad's place. He had started acting weird the last couple of months. For whatever reason, he had kicked me out. I had to go basically stay at the brothel. I wasn't working, right, at the brothel, but I basically had to stay there until he, and like wait tables and things of that nature until he kind of like came to his senses. But unfortunately, he passed away. And there were these strange markings, at least there were rumors that there are these strange markings on his body. They called the Seekers in. The Seekers were here for a couple of days, and then they just left yesterday. Or they had left like a day and a half before, right? So the party is behind the Seekers. And so what the party is able to suss out from their history checks is that Seekers are basically the secret police. They're the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, whatever you want to call them. They're kind of the alphabet boys of this particular government. And they're not typically people that you want to mess with. They always work in pairs. They are known to all have some semblance of magic, and they're not people that you go around and test the waters with. So the fact that the Seekers were called out and took charge and are even taking some of the people who saw the body back with them all the way to Hetham, which from here is about a 1-week ride. So you're talking about taking people at least 2 weeks away from their home, right? 1 week to Hetham and then another week back in order to interrogate them, like officially on record. This has to be a pretty big deal. So this piques the party's interest. They decide that they're going to risk exhausting their horses, but they are going to attempt to catch up to the Seekers. So the party increases their speed. They do eventually catch up to the Seekers. They're about 2 days out from Hetham or so, but they pass the Seekers, and they have a little bit of a conversation with them. As they're passing the Seekers, it's a pink tiefling male, approximately 6.5 feet tall, very muscular. His horns kind of curve, almost follow the curvature of his skull directly back, and he has, in between his horns, there's this stark white, short, kempt, but spiky hair. And he introduces himself as Shivers. He introduces his partner, who is a female ASMR, who is bald and very, very much not involved in this conversation. She basically just has kind of her eyes forward on the road while Shivers is talking to these people. He basically just gets their name, says, "Hey, how are you doing? Hope everything's going okay. Let us know if anything goes wrong. Have a good day," right? The paladin used their divine sensibility to detect good and evil, and there is a massive evil presence in the trunk of this carriage that the Seekers are driving. So they know that something is really, really messed up with that body that the Seekers found, which is probably why the Seekers are taking it so seriously. But that's the introduction of Shivers and his partner, who he introduces as Masoli, to the party. And as the party moves forward and gets to that shanty town that's at the edge of the watchtowers, it's 1 day's march from Hetham, there's basically a city guard that is placed all at the outside, and there's like a line of people that are trying to get in along this main road, and they can't get. Basically, it looks like the guards are looking through everything that these people have, and inventorying and then putting a seal. And so what Milo chooses to do is he chooses to turn into a squirrel and basically go around this barrier that they have made. And he kind of gets this collective of squirrels and like gets he has like a small troop of squirrels as he's escaping, as he's bypassing basically the security checkpoint and going and getting into the town, and then changes back. And as soon as he changes back into a halfling, unfortunately, all of the squirrels go away. It was very, very disappointing for the party members. They thought that they were going to have an army of squirrels to fight alongside them, but guess what? Squirrels don't typically like humans or humanoids. They're a little dangerous to be around. But the rest of the party goes up, gets all of their belongings checked. It's hey, this is what it is that you have in your possession, and then we're going to seal it with like a lead wire seal, and then as long as, if you're entering the city, as long as this seal isn't removed, then guess what? You can easily go into and out of the city, and your bags and everything won't be checked. But the City Watch goes so far as to even, we're going to wire your like swords into their sheaths to make sure that you are not going out and to make sure that you are not going out and like using your weapons. And once they're inside of the shantytown for a little bit, they stop back at Brenda's Inn, because this is kind of like the end of their this is towards like kind of the start of their day. So they stop at Brenda's Inn, and Roderick kind of asks the city guard, like, hey man, like what's going on? And they hear that the Athenians invaded Laurel. Now, the Athenians are the Elven Empire. They're basically what the basic knowledge of the players was at the time was that the Athenians are the elves. They're a highly theological based hierarchy. The divine presence is the archbishop who rules the Elven Empire, and they are basically the other major power apart from Enikia in the north. And Laurel is a place of gnomes and goblins primarily, and they are mercantile based, but they are tinkerers, inventors. That is the primary purpose, and the export of what Laurel does is basically massive. They're massive artificers, basically, and exporting those things to the rest of the world. And they just so happen to border the Athenian Empire, and basically the Athenians are like, we're taking this over because we don't want you to trade with anyone but us. And because of that, basically that sends the council into high alert, and they kind of start to put some pressure in security measures into basically trying to make sure that there are not things coming into the city of Hetham that could damage the kingdom as a whole that we don't know about. So just trying for their own safety. If the Athenians are going and doing some crazy stuff, but like invading Laurel, the sovereign nation, then how long until they come to us? So just as an immediate response in case they're trying to do something quick, we're going to kind of batten down the hatches. Eventually, the party makes their way back into Hetham and returns their horses. Milo does have to get all of his bags checked and get sealed, but it's fine. It's simple manifest, nothing too incredibly crazy. The only other thing that happened was, while they were at Brenda's, there was a second pair of seekers that they saw. One of them was a male dwarf who had a portion of his jaw was kind of covered in metal, almost as if he had like a metal cast on his jaw. And then there was a female human, probably just over 5 feet tall, very beautiful, but almost in a rugged sense, where her face has been, and like her hands have been scarred. She's seen some shit at the end of the day, and that in particular kind of offsets this almost unnatural beauty that she possesses. Her hair also has threads of gold intertwined into its braid. One of the defining features about Seekers and how they were able to recognize all of them is that Seekers wear black trench coats with silver buttons. And so they are blatantly standing out, even if you're trying to, quote unquote, disguise yourself and hide in plain sight, if you're walking around in a black trench coat and silver buttons, people know who you are. It carries a very particular status in this kingdom. And so those two seekers are sitting there. So obviously the kingdom, what the party is able to recognize is that the kingdom is taking this invasion of Laurel very, very seriously, and it's just trying to not only actually keep themselves safe, but also convince the public that they're trying to do what's best for them. And once the party makes it back into Hetham is where our 4th session ends, with our party successfully gathering the ring and making it all the way back to the city of Hetham. This was one of our longer sessions that we had, and there was a lot going on. There was a lot to get through. And that was, my goal was, okay, I need to get these guys back to the city of Hetham so that they can start investigating basically what it is that they need to do in order to try and keep the pace up. One of the other things that I granted them was the way that I'm running levels in this particular campaign is I'm doing event-based leveling. That is just a personal preference of mine for my storytelling aspects. I do try and balance out the EXP that individuals are earning in order to make sure that it's roughly around the same time, but I basically have a goal, and I stated this to the players during at the beginning of our first session, that I am trying to level them every 3 to 6 sessions. Somewhere in there is what I feel is a comfortable range for the pace that we're playing, to feel like we're not just stuck in a grind where, like, oh my goodness, we've been level 5 for 10 sessions, right? Which for us, we're playing roughly every 2 weeks. That is a long, long time. It's like we have been the same level for 5 months. That's not something that I particularly wanted to do, and that's a personal preference. It worked out in this case where it lined up with, okay, the king is going to bind you and instill in you some of his power, and that's what kind of pushes you up to the next level from 3 to 4. The other thing is, because I typically run much heavier RP style campaigns at times where combat kind of takes a back seat. Combat is still very important, and it's necessary, in my opinion, to, like, I am giving your character power. You need to be able to feel that power that you are gaining with levels and items and things of that. The easiest way for you to be able to feel that is for me to put you in a combat situation that you understand, because there are either more creatures, or the creatures hit harder, or the creatures take longer to kill even though I'm doing more damage. There are ways that I, as a DM, can kind of tell you in a sense, okay, I'm giving you more things and you're gaining more levels, and okay, I feel like I'm doing more and being more effective to the world as a whole. So that, to me, combat is important, but also the RP and the storytelling is integral to the way that I want to run the game. One of the things that is always at the forefront of what it is that I'm trying to do, especially for my homebrew games, is that I am trying to make it a living, breathing world. Your actions have consequences, and that is what I'm trying to set up a little bit with, okay, I'm giving you this ring, and there's going to be a lot of pressure put on you, because I want you to understand from the very early get-go that you can be important. You're performing an important task, and your actions have consequences, potentially world-changing consequences. And from a little bit later, I'm going to try and change the narrative a little bit, and hopefully you can see what the change in the narrative is. Now that what I've hoped to have instilled in the players is that I've established that you can be important, you're doing important things, your actions have consequences, big world consequences, but you are still, at this point, small fish in a very, very large pond. And that kind of comes to fruition over the next few sessions that we play. At least it starts to, and then really takes hold later, at least in my opinion. But I hope that you have enjoyed me rambling on, talking about this and the story that is being told so far. And I really hope that you continue to watch and listen as our heroes try and figure out what in the world they are going to do.